UK MP Matthew Offord is here in Cayman on vacation, but he's using his holiday to catch up on environmental issues key to the Cayman Islands. Last night, he held a reception with members of government, including Environment Minister Wayne Panton. Members of the DOE were also at the reception. He joins us this morning to tell us why he's back in Cayman. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, so you're here. You've done quite a bit of work on the environment. You sit on a number of committees, including one about the environment, and you're here in Cayman. Let's talk about your role and what are the various committees that you sit on.
I'm a member of the Environmental Audit Select Committee in the UK Parliament, and that means that we undertake audits of environmental issues. And one of those the inquiries that we undertook was sustainability in the overseas territories, which we published last year. And as part of that, I visited Cayman with the chairman, and we saw for ourselves things that were going on here and how your government were seeking to introduce conservation legislation.
And what are your thoughts on how they've progressed at this stage? It took certainly quite a lot of time to get it into law and now to try and get it enacted.
I think they've done very, very well. I spoke last night to Minister Panton, as you said, and when we came here, there was no conservation bill, and now that legislation has happened, and there's recently been the two other acts that followed it as well, which means that the Cayman Islands are really in the forefront of environmental protection.
Okay, so even though locally we've had this big issue about dragging it out, there's certainly a lesson for other overseas territories to learn from what's been done here in Cayman?
I think it's always a lesson, and that's one of the points about the inquiry that we undertook, to see how different overseas territories were actually introducing conservation legislation. And I think, as you say, it did take a long time, but Cayman's now achieved that, and it'd be interesting to see how some of the other overseas territories also achieve the same.
Okay, one of the big things that is likely to happen that will have some impact on the environment is the development, as we mentioned, of a cruise facility in Georgetown. What have you been seeing where that is concerned? Any issues that you may have with any impact that may bring?
Well, obviously this is a very sensitive issue for the islands as a whole. But the environmental impact assessment, which has now been agreed, as you've been reporting on earlier, I think is a major step forward. And certainly both the Department of Environment and indeed the ministers themselves will be able to take that into consideration when they make their decision. The
argument, though, is with an EIA on a major project like this, you almost could get it to say what you want to say. There's that perception out there. How, from your standpoint, how valid is that concern?
That's often said about any kind of development that goes on, but I have great confidence that there is the governance in the Cayman Islands government itself to actually address that point and to answer and allay the concerns of some people.
What for you would be the biggest thing that we need to worry about in terms of such a development? There's been talk about the impact on 7 Mile Beach, on reefs. What would you pinpoint?
Well, this is an issue for the Cayman Islands government and not me as a member of Her Majesty's Parliament. But I would certainly always been concerned about any kind of development that may change the fundamental nature of a place, which it quite possibly could with the number of cruise ships that come in.
So it's one to look as well. Let me ask you about it, because we mentioned it going into the break coming. The World Society for the Protection of Animals, they've been back and forth with the Cayman Turtle Farm. Did say there may be some concerns, but you have a different view about what should be done with relation to the turtle farm?
Well, I have to make it very clear that any decision about the turtle farm is a decision for the Cayman Islands government and for the people of the island, not for me as a member of the British Parliament. And I've made that very clear. The World Society for Protection of Animals have some issues, which I'm pleased that they are discussing directly with the Cayman Islands government. Instead of having a dialogue through the press and through the media, they're speaking directly to them. And they have been quite positive. One of the things that they want to do is to undertake a study to see how much turtle meat is eaten by islanders. And I think that's a positive step forward. But as I said, that's very much an issue for them, not for me.
Okay, so off that now and ask you, what else is in store for you during your time here on the Cayman Islands?
I'm looking forward to returning to the Blue Iguana project. It's always good to see Freddie and Alberto down there. I'm very much looking forward to diving on the east end of the island. I've been diving on the west and indeed the south, and I'm looking forward to catching up with friends on the island.
Thank you very much, Mr. Offord, for coming in this morning and speaking with us. about all things environment and your role and what you have to say about what's happening here in the Cayman Islands.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning.